Lessons of Humanity and Freedom, Journeys of Transformation Behind Bars. He was a college professor teaching in state prisons for several years. From the start, I felt a certain anxiety about being in such an unusual environment. After all, I was in a room with about 24 convicted murderers and drug dealers. It wasn't exactly a welcoming place. However, after about a month, I realized that I had nothing to worry about. I was surprised to find that these men were willing to put themselves in harm's way to protect the teachers. Once, during one of my lectures, there was a blockage. Our room was locked from the outside, and we couldn't move until it was over. We heard what sounded like a riot from above, chaos approaching. In the corner of the room, one of the inmates tugged at me, practically dragging me to the farthest corner of the door. Silently, the men began to stack the classroom desks in front of the door, creating a barrier to keep me safe. They were willing to risk their own lives to protect mine. In the end, the riot was not as severe as we feared, and the blockade only lasted about an hour. Once everything had calmed down and the room was back in order, I asked the men why they had done this. One replied, "When the teachers leave, we don't want to miss out on the opportunity to continue our education. We can't let a few idiots ruin that for us." That experience taught me that, beneath the surface, these men had a sense of responsibility and a genuine desire to improve their lives through learning. Your actions that day demonstrated a surprising loyalty and sense of community I didn't expect to find in such a hostile environment. This was just one of the incredible stories I experienced while working with people who are often judged and stereotyped by society. Each individual has their own journey, and behind their circumstances there is always a story worth hearing. These experiences reminded me of the power of human connection and the impact small gestures of empathy can have on our lives. Sometimes it's easy to make assumptions and judge, but each person has their own story and deserves to be understood. So never underestimate the power of a simple action, a kind word or a moment of once. While I was in prison, I witnessed a surprising moment of solidarity. It was a normal day in the common area, where inmates could socialize and exercise. One of the detainees, a burly and intimidating man, was doing weight-lifting exercises with heavy weights. He was demonstrating his strength and dominance to everyone around. Suddenly, a younger prisoner, thin and apparently frail, shyly approached him. Everyone expected the youngest to be ridiculed and humiliated for his audacity in challenging the strongest. However, something unexpected happened. Instead of mocking the young prisoner, the muscular man encouraged and offered guidance. He taught him the correct techniques for lifting weights, correcting his posture and encouraging him not to give up. It was an incredible scene of mutual support and respect. The other prisoners, who had previously been watching with disdain, began to applaud and encourage the young prisoner. He, motivated by the trust placed in him, continued to strive and overcome his own limits. That weight room, normally full of rivalries and hostilities, was transformed into an environment of camaraderie and overcoming difficulties. This story illustrates that even in a place as harsh as prison, humanity and mutual support can flourish. It shows that no matter what we look like or background, everyone deserves respect and a chance to redeem themselves. During my time in prison, I met a man who had spent most of his life behind bars. He was a veteran of the prison system, but there was something remarkably different about him. He exuded calm and wisdom, as if he had seen and learned more than any ordinary person. One day, I was brave enough to ask him the secret of how he managed to keep his sanity and find purpose in such a dark place. He looked at me with deep eyes and said, "The key is finding freedom within yourself." He explained that even though he was physically confined, he found that he still had the power to choose his attitude and his mindset. He found solace in reading, writing and meditation, allowing his mind to wander beyond the bars and immediate reality. He shared stories of how he wrote poems and short stories, taking his mind to faraway and imaginary places. encouraged me to do the same, to discover my own creativity and expression even in such a restrictive environment. That encounter changed my perspective. I realized that despite difficult circumstances, we are able to find inner freedom and personal growth. Through the power of imagination, the pursuit of knowledge and the cultivation of a resilient mindset, we can transcend physical barriers and find an enduring sense of freedom. These prison stories taught me valuable lessons about human nature and the importance of never judging someone based solely on their outer circumstances. Everyone has the ability to change and grow, regardless of their background or environment. And those lessons will stay with me, constantly reminding me of the power of empathy, resilience and the pursuit of inner freedom. Bringing light to the shadows, stories of transformation and freedom behind bars, connection. We all have stories worth sharing and listening to.